Welcome to the Mental Advantage Podcast. Whether you're an athlete trying to perform at your best when it counts the most, a coach or business leader trying to get more out of your team, or someone looking for more personal growth, this is the place for you. This podcast is your map to guide you to the right mindset, systems, and strategies you need to become the best version of yourself. And now, here's John Cullen and Brandon Allen.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. We have a really good one tonight, Brandon. This is somebody I've known actually for a while now. And I know, you've heard me talk about Phil Stinnie a lot, but for our listeners, Phil Stinnie he's the Dean of Student Life and Director of Diversity at St. Anne's Belfield in Charlottesville, Virginia, where he's also the head girls basketball coach there. But, more than that, he's somebody who's a former athlete. He played basketball at VCU, where he was a Hall of Fame basketball player in the late 80s, and then also had an opportunity to play professionally where he was drafted by the New York Knicks in the 1988 NBA draft. And as we've talked about before, the beauty of having somebody like Phil on is he can handle so many different topics that we have, because he's seen it from a coach, he's seen it from a player's perspective, he's seen it from a parent's perspective. So our kind of guy.
For sure. And as part of that, he's got some sons that have played college athletics. He's got a son that played with Mac, your son, at JMU, and is now sporting a ring after winning the Super Bowl, right, with Tampa Bay. So, great guest. I know through your experiences with Bailey and him being a coach for her, that's something that, you always spoke really high of Phil, and I'm anxious for the listeners to hear from him.
Well, Brandon, we finally got him in here. We've been talking about Phil Stinnie for a while now, right? Yeah. And I kept saying, when we started this Mental Advantage podcast, I said, we got to get Phil on the show, because here's somebody who comes at it from all the different angles. Yeah. Every single scenario we talk about, whether it be a coach, whether it be father of an athlete, whether it's a parent, as a educator. He's somebody who's going to be able to handle a lot of the different topics that we like to talk about. And as I've said before, this is a conversation, Phil, that you and I have had a long time, just sitting around, basketball gyms or whatever. So we can't thank you enough for coming on the show with us.
I appreciate you guys having me. I was looking forward to this. I'm glad we could make it happen.
Absolutely.
I was hoping that we could do a father-son duo, but my son is over. He has all these meetings he has to go to, so he's busy. And I said, now that I'm worried about him, because he's down there with that hurricane now, because one of his buddies is getting married right in North Carolina, and is headed right towards Fayetteville. So that's where he is. So
is that right? Wow. That's incredible. Well, I know he's been busy. He's talking, of course, guys, for the listeners, Aaron Stinnie, who's Phil's son, who also just happens to be wearing a ring. You heard Brandon mention this in the introduction, but wearing a ring for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a guard offensive lineman for them, and had the really cool. I was texting Phil a lot during this time, but really, you're 2 feet away from the greatest quarterback of all time, and you got a job to do, though. You're not just out there. You
got to keep him clean. You got to keep him clean.
Right. Yeah, you do.
He doesn't like walking in the locker room with a dirty uniform.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I was going to say for the listeners, if you guys want to, and I would highly encourage you to do this, is follow Phil on Twitter. His handle is at pstinnie35. And one of the things, Phil, I was telling Brandon before we got started today was what I love among a lot of things about you is the fact that on your Twitter profile, it says husband, father, and new grandpop, lover of family and life. It's like, of all the things that you've accomplished in your life, these are the things you really are most proud of, right? Is those roles you're playing.
Those roles mean so much to me because, I was brought up with a single mom and had no relationship with my dad, and he passed away. My grandparents passed away when I was very young. So the relationships that a lot of folks take for granted, I never had. So those things are very important to me.
Yeah.
So that's why that's those are key parts of my life. So
how is it being a new grandpa? Well, it's not so new anymore. It's a little. I mean, it's still a little new, but
well, I got the new baby girl. She's 7 months now, but you hear it all the time. You hear from the old guard as you're growing up. You love your kids, but there's nothing about that love for your grandkids. It is absolutely true, man.
Yeah,
it is unreal. Like my 2-year-old grandson, I don't think I have no in my vocabulary when it comes to him. I just can't tell him no.
Yeah.
And when he looks at me and say, "Pop, I'm done," I'm putty in his hand.
Right. So. Yeah. And they figure that out pretty quick too.
Oh, he knows I'm the soft one.
That's right. That's right. Well, I got a question for you before we get too far into this thing. In the introduction, we talked about Dean of Student Life and Director of Diversity at St. Anne's. What's kind of the role? Like, how do you describe for people what that role is like at when somebody says, "What are you doing over there at St. Anne's Belfield?"
It's all about inclusivity.
Okay.
In our state of the country in the last year and a half, 2 years, that DEI phrase has come up a lot, and I'm sure it has in you guys feel.
Yeah.
And it's all about that sense of belonging. The country could have been torn into pieces, but I think wiser and smarter heads prevail.
Sure.
Because even if it had erupted like everybody thought it was going to erupt, people would have understood why. But we had to understand that we would have torn down something we built. And that's what I do at St. Anne's. I want to show them that we can build the community that we really want. And yes, it's a very influential community, high-end academic school, independent school. Yes, it costs a mint to be there, but we have made it a conscious effort of trying to make our hallways as diverse as we possibly can. But with that being said, make those kids feel like it's their own.
Yeah.
And that's part of my job. Well, that's basically my job.
Well, look, and I will say this, having had a daughter who went through and walked those halls, that's one of the things that I think is most obvious about her kind of well-rounded education that she got at St. Anne's was the fact that she, number one, has already been a part of those conversations. All of this was not new to her. Like Absolutely. All of this last year we were in, that was nothing new. She was comfortable in those uncomfortable conversations because you all did such a good job over there of making that happen. And I think it's kudos to you guys because you're exactly right. From a multicultural standpoint, and, it's definitely a great melting pot, if you will, as far as all of the different,
It's a great way to put it. Melting pot.
Yes. Yeah. So you all have done a great job with that. Well, I think it's one of those things, as I mentioned earlier, so many different ways we can get into this, but let's go ahead and jump into the fact that, as we talk about the many directions that we could be going from a topic standpoint tonight, you are, I should say, in the VCU Hall of Fame as a player. You were drafted in the 1988 draft with the Knicks. Coached hundreds of players over the years. Extremely successful high school basketball coach and AAU coach. Like we talked about earlier, parented collegiate athletes. Not just Aaron, but your other son played at William and Mary. Super Bowl champion now in Aaron, and I have some questions about all of those things. But first, I want to start with you as a player. So Brandon and I talk a lot about the elite mindset and just that heart of a champion, right? I want to know what were some of the things that you did and ways that you manifested those things as a player? Do you think back and you think I was pretty good at that, or was that something you had to really work at?
I had a different plight than the normal athlete.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is I was never a basketball buff. I started playing basketball because I heard that was a cool thing to do. All the girls like the basketball players. And I grew from maybe 6 inches from 8th grade to 9th grade. So I was wasn't a little uncoordinated. I was a lot uncoordinated. But I started playing the game. I wasn't very good at it. It was something I had to work at. But I was always challenged. When I grew up in inner city Charlottesville, and that was in a housing projects, and most of my friends were pretty good at basketball, and I wanted to play. And when you weren't as good, you got made fun of. Get out the court, you to get the last one pick, or this, that, and the other. And I was still competitive, even though I wasn't very good.
Right.
So I had to say, in my mind, and only way I could shut them up is like beat them up. You know what I mean? So outwork them, play physical, this and that. Even though I was a skin and bones, I was still pretty physical. Still didn't have the talent. But so when I understood if you outwork that one who can play, then the respect comes. And people start looking at you differently. So with that being said, the skill set never changed. Yeah. I just started getting more respect because they knew they could count on me. I was going to get that rebound. I was going to hustle. I was going to play defense, and those were the things that got me part of the in crowd.
Right.
But I had a setback because in the 9th grade I was going to play trial for the 9th grade basketball team. And I was still playing street ball instead of organized ball. And my coach told me that he didn't need me this year. He said, you have to learn how to play, this, that, and the other. And actually, it was my 8th grade going into my 9th grade year. And so I was heartbroken, thought I had done all the things I needed to do. But then I had someone look at me and like, it's about skill. And so I had one guy. He showed me how to throw a hook with my right hand and my left hand. He showed me how to shoot the little short jumper right in the paint.
Yep.
And I could jump, so I could always jump over people. And those are the 3 shots that I had. And from my 9th grade until my junior year, that's all I did.
Yeah.
It was either that or dunking. I had nothing. You don't give me the ball, I couldn't dribble. And if I was going to dribble real hard, right-handed, and I was going to push you out the way of my left to get to the basket. So
that's hilarious.
I was known as an athlete, and then it was crazy because my junior year we had a very good high school basketball player. He's passed now. His name was Carl Brock, and college coaches were coming in to see him. And I was his backup. And I got in the game and, I did what I did. And at the end of the season, my coach came to me and handed me these letters. You remember how you used to get the letters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I got my first letter, and I remember it was from Radford University.
Yeah.
And how everybody used to put it in their back pocket.
Right.
And I basically taped that thing in my chest and walked around the school, and everybody was like, ooh, they got a letter. Oh, baby. And then, it went, and I never played AAU. I couldn't afford to do those things.
Sure.
I had to work in the summer because my mom couldn't afford me to do those things. And so I actually worked in a restaurant and just worked in a restaurant from 8 to 5, met my friends at the basketball court at 6 o'clock, played from 6 to 10, go home and did all that over and over every summer. So it was all about the resiliency of wanting to change the circumstances.
Absolutely.
That's what drove me.
So I love what you just said there on the resiliency side of things, Phil. So learning at a young age to work ethic, I can earn respect through work, and to use a setback and in terms of a coach telling you, hey, not this year, and kudos to you to stick with it, because if you hit that 6-inch spurt over that summer, now all of a sudden that coach is thinking, damn, why did I tell him I couldn't use him? Like when he was 5'7", I didn't need him. Now that he's 6'2" in the 9th grade, I could have used him. But, one of the things that kids today and where I would think St. Anne's really benefits by having you is kids today, when they're told there's a setback, they have so many options now. They don't look at that as an opportunity to grow. They look at that as a reason to leave. And I'll go find another opportunity somewhere else doing something else. And to me, and maybe I'm old school, that always feels like just it's regret on the horizon.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how do you tell a kid as a coach and as someone that says, hey, look, I don't need you this year, but don't go away. Right. How do you impart that wisdom into young kids this time around?
To be honest with you, that is the hardest thing to change, because there's so many entities and when a kid have a setback. I mean, if you had looked at the NCAA portal this year, girls and boys in basketball alone, it was hundreds and hundreds of kids transferring.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna wind that back. My freshman year at VCU, I got 36. I can remember it was like 136 minutes.
Yeah.
In the whole season.
Right.
Now, if that was this day, I would have definitely left. I was the top recruit.
Yeah. Right. Hey, Radford. Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? I was the top recruit. So with that being said, what you were just saying, how do we get these kids to have that stick-to-itiveness? It's hard, because when a lot of these kids' parents raised them in a different way than they were raised, my struggles made me have the toughness that I had.
Yep.
Now, mind you, I didn't want my kids to have that struggle as I grew up, as they grew up. So I was fortunate enough to give them the life that I didn't have. But what I did was I challenged them within anything they did to be not the best, the hardest worker. Yeah. Always understand that make sure the coach always understand that you can be counted on, and you can always be a great teammate.
Yeah.
And that's what I pushed them for. Not all the parents are doing this. And I'm not here to bash the parents.
No.
But a lot of what we're seeing is because a lot of our parents aren't holding our kids accountable.
Yeah.
If they have a setback, it's not the kid's problem. It's the coach. It's the team.
Right. Absolutely.
It's always someone else's problem.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate that we're that we're facing that right now, because it's really affecting the quality of our sports.
Yeah. And our society, quite frankly. I mean, it's one of those things that's universal. And it's so, Brandon and I just had this discussion last week or so about, as parents, how, we had some challenges coming up through to all the things you just mentioned, but yet we didn't want that for our kids. But you do find those ways to challenge them. You find those ways to hey, control your attitude, effort, and all that other stuff. And you see, I think in one of the arenas you see this the most is AAU sports. Whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever. If I don't play on this team, my dad's I'm going to start another team. We might start it in the parking lot. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's the transfer portal. Yep. I'll find another team next year.
Yeah. Or either that parent that think they know everything, I'm gonna start my own team.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's when it really gets bad, because I when I coach boys, I actually coach both of my kids. And here's the story why I coach girls. I started coaching girls. I didn't want everybody to say, "Oh, Phil got into coaching the coaching."
Yeah, that's right. That's great.
Luckily,
that's awesome.
I had a short stint with them coaching as basketball players, and both of them wound up being football players.
That's right.
So maybe I did a good job. Who knows? I ran them away from the sport.
That's right.
But I think with the old school thought process of myself, me coaching my boys did them injustice, because I was harder on them, and I cheated them because I pushed them too hard, and And it was trying to prove a point that if I'm not going to let my boy do this, then you better not try.
Yeah.
And it was good in one way, but bad in the other for my kid, because both of them just wanted to be part of the team and just be able to do what they did. But I always wanted more from them. And now that they're older, they tell me they understood why I did that. I pushed them to always be great, because I didn't want the boys on the team to say, you were only on this team because your dad is coach.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was like a double-edged sword. So I hope, and I think I did. I think I taught them a lot about dealing with adversity. And if your dad is giving you that adversity doing that sport, that you can face any other coach.
Yeah.
And I'm looking back, thinking about my boys' careers in high school and in college. I don't think they would have been able to make it through that if they didn't have me coaching them the way I did.
You're exactly right.
They had some pretty.
Oh yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. No, well, look, I mean, Brandon and I, we've talked about this. Both of us have coached our own kids. And I always say the hardest position to play on any field or court is the coach's son or daughter, because you're going to get everybody in the stands thinks it's the best. Oh, you look at them. No, when it's time to take somebody out, it's usually your kid that you take out first, because you'll handle the mama there, right? But you're not going to be able to handle the you just don't want to sometimes tolerate the other one. You said something, Phil, when you were talking about your own experience growing up, and I love this way you said this, is you're motivated by your circumstances, because we talk about this all the time, is the difference in how when people don't have plan B, they don't have that second option, how much more they just get that drive, that motor going. I want you, because you've seen this in your role as a basketball coach at St. Anne's, you've seen in your role as an AAU coach. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between players who have that engine, that drive, if you will, that makes them want to be great, versus players who, and this has been happening more and more, it's the parents who want them to be great. It's the parents who want them to be successful. And what a challenge that can be, because at some point you realize that motor on this player isn't coming from them. It's coming from somebody in the stands.
Right. And that motor usually fizzle out at some point.
For sure.
Yep.
Because as they get older and they start facing different adversity, then they're just going to realize that I'm only doing it for mom or dad.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I'm dealing with that right now with this team. I have a pretty strong team. Already have 4 girls with D1 commits. We have one girl she's not a bad player. She's a good player.
Yeah.
Could she be a D2 or high-end D3 school kid? Yes.
Yeah.
Does she have an academic profile to do it? Yes. But she told me 2 weeks ago that I don't want to play college basketball.
Right.
I say, okay, so this is a lot of commitment and money that's being dispersed. Have you talked to your mom about this? And she's like, I don't know how to tell her.
Yeah. It's
Think
tough.
about that.
Yeah.
She is going through this, not wanting to do it, but she knows this is what her mom wants. And you would never think that when you see her on the court, diving for the ball,
right,
being up the best basketball player, being the best teammate, the most coachable kid I had. She's driven to satisfy mom.
Yeah.
She doesn't even want it. And that's what's going on. And we have 2 more tournaments. And I told her, I said, you need to tell your mom before we do these next 2 exposure tournaments. It's 5-day commitment. It's a lot of money that's committed. You need to come clean with her.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's going to do it. It's not my place to do it.
Right.
I'm going to coach her like she wants to be a D1 player.
Yeah.
Right.
But that drive, like you said, that engine that's driven by someone else, how the struggle from that athlete, that kid, especially at that age, to tell mom or dad, this isn't what I want.
Right.
I don't know. I couldn't give her that advice. I didn't know what to tell her.
Well, and Phil, I think there's another. So that's a real big challenge. The other thing it becomes is when they tell you all the things you want to hear as a coach. It's like, hey, we're with you. We want this to happen. Everybody, the players on board, we're on board. Everyone's on board. And you and I have had this conversation before, but then you realize, and I always say this, there's two people in the rowboat. There's the coach, and then there's the parent, the family, right? If the coach is the only one rowing that rowboat, then you're just going in circles, right? You're not making any progress whatsoever. And then when you find that out, it's a big challenge. And then, so that's one aspect of it. The other aspect, and Brandon and I talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago, is then you have the player who they just get to that goal. Maybe their goal was to play college basketball. Well, they got there. Now what? And I tell them all the time, that's when it starts. Like the work, all this stuff you thought was a grind. That's
when it becomes a job.
Yeah.
That's when it's a job. They own it.
That's when it becomes a job.
Yeah.
You are literally performing to put food on someone's table.
Yeah.
That coach would lose his job if you don't play well.
Absolutely.
And I told, and my motto, my statement that I tell every kid, the coach that's recruiting you is not the coach you're going to play for.
That's right. That's right.
They always ask, what do you mean by that? I said, that's the honeymoon phase.
Yes.
I said, because the coach that I thought that loved me, I thought he forgot my name because all he called me was SOB.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a business. Some coaches on the next level handle it better than others.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the kids that understand how that business works and how those parents that understand how the business works, those are the ones that you don't see in the portal.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that grind it out, face the adversity, put in the work to be successful.
Yeah.
Now, what they think is successful could be different than others.
Mm-hmm.
You could come in and say, I want to just be a D1 player, get my 4 years, get me a degree, and then go off to the workforce. Just like I tell everybody, just because you play high school don't mean you can play college. Just because you play college don't mean you can be a pro.
Yep.
And that's when you get that understanding of what that plan B is, then things change.
And that's found out. I mean, and that's going to be shown. The bright lights will shine on that, right? I mean, you have one of the best lines I've ever heard said about AAU basketball is I remember being in a parent meeting one time, and you were talking, all the parents, of course, are like, we're going to go to those exposure tournaments. We want to go to all these things. And you said, look, I'm just telling you all right now, there's two things that happen at an exposure tournament. You either get exposure or you get exposed. Yeah. And I was like, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And you try to get everybody to stay in, always say, this is my new thing, stay in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's okay being a good basketball player. Mm-hmm. Those who get D1 opportunities were great basketball players.
Right.
Girl, boy, you were the big fish in your pond. Mm-hmm. Everybody that you see on that next level is the big fish in their pond in high school. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it didn't come easy.
Yeah.
They had to do some work to get there. Yeah. Now, some of them just were blessed with some talent. You can say whatever you want. 7'2" is 7'2". 6'5" girl is 6'5" girl. Right. A LeBron James athlete is a LeBron James athlete.
Yeah.
Those things you can't determine. Those are just God's gifts. But you see the ones who have worked at their craft, like a Steph Curry, like a Damian Lillard, who guys are smaller, but can shoot from the parking lot. That just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. Those are a lot of hours of work.
Yeah.
A lot of ice on elbows. Believe me, I know.
How has you mentioned earlier that you have 4, of the D1 commits? How has social media changed your job as a coach? Because I know some of the girls you're talking about, and I see the social media and I see the hype that's around some of these girls. And I just, every time I read any of these things, I think of you. I think, man, Phil's going to have a tough practice because they all believe the hype.
It is, social media is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
Because every kid, anytime a kid got any free moment of the day, they're on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or they're on some type of social media.
Right.
And they are tweeting. They want to see what was posted, who liked their post, who liked this. And anything athletically, if any college follow or like, it makes my job so much harder.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand, just like you want your characters and you want your followers and you want to get your blue check, a lot of those colleges are doing the same thing.
Right.
So they're going to check you and like you so you can like them. And then the numbers go up. And I tell everyone, the one thing that I'm fighting, and we spoke about my buddy earlier, my co-director, Coach Tabor. He's a computer whiz and he's a social media whiz, and he convinced me that we got to put out a Twitter this year. So he did. I said, you handle it. I don't want to deal with it, because all you have to do, and here's how bad it is. If I was to tweet about one of my players having a great game, it's going to piss off the rest of the family.
Absolutely.
Because they're like, my kid didn't have a great game.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a lose-lose situation for me as a coach.
Yeah.
And that's why I leave it alone. But social media has created this beast for these kids. And now we see social media caused this NCAA.
Absolutely.
Social media caused that to happen.
Yeah, it did. And that's where I was going. So you can see it, and John and I spoke about this before you hopped on, Phil. The challenge that this is getting ready to create for a coach to keep harmony in a locker room is going to be unbelievable.
First,
and people don't know.
You already have that seventh guy who think he's just as good as that third guy.
That's right.
Okay? When he see that third guy is making all this money because he's on the floor, when he thinks and knows that he's better, that locker room is going to be turmoil. Those practices are going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
It's going to be fights. People are going to, and then that's going to, you think you are because you got these followers, you make your money. You ain't. And
that's right.
You've been in locker rooms. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
no
I remember for us, if you had a freshman come in that you heard he got more money than someone that was already on the team, he was getting ready to feel it. Every day.
Look. I can't wait to get him upstairs.
That's right. That's right.
That's the way it is.
Yep.
So how do you even begin to comprehend for especially kids that are, so let's flip that script and say, when the number 7 guy, because when he showed up, he had a following on Twitter or Instagram, and now he's making the bank that the third guy isn't, even though the third guy's on the floor.
Yeah.
That becomes a challenge.
Oh, I got another one. What about when that freshman walk in the door with his bag?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Because now those kids who are those, like I told you, those big fish in their ponds in high school, as soon as they graduate from high school, they can start selling their likeness.
Yep.
Bill, I got a friend who's his son he's got 4 deals already. He's a rising senior in high school. And he's got 4 deals already. And he hadn't even committed anywhere yet.
This is crazy.
It is bananas.
And I have some girls and they are heavily on the social media. As soon as they get that opening, you watch.
Well, and look here, I mean, you're going to start, you think about the impact this has on recruiting, because if those 4 deals that Brandon speaks of, if one of those is more tied to one particular school, and I know that's going to be a bigger paycheck, well, it makes no sense why I would go anywhere else besides that school, right? I mean, it's just a snowball. And I'm telling you, it's if it probably hasn't already, it's trickling into your circuit, that AAU circuit right now, because they're going to start planting those seeds there. I mean, that's when they're going to start getting them, because they're not around the high school coaches as much. They're going to start, it's a little bit less, more exposure, let's say.
Well, there's no penalty either.
Yeah.
There's no penalty now to have an off-court deal with Nike or Adidas, even though I might go to an Under Armour school.
You beat me to it. I was getting ready to say it.
Yeah.
Wait till the shoe money start happening.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And the NCAA thought they couldn't control the AAU circuit with the shoe deals.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you just open up the floodgates for individual kids.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden that college coach is going to be dealing with the same stuff that the pro coach does is, hey, we need so-and-so to be on that floor, because if Nike is going to still be involved with your school, we need your players, the ones that we're in connection with, to be the ones that are out there.
I still say this is why Coach K is retired.
I agree.
He is old school. I think this is why Roy retired. They saw it coming. They know they can't handle it because they're too old school. They're not going to deal with the stress of this. Yeah. Because this is going to determine, like you said, who they recruit, who they play, what type of schedule they have. Yeah. I mean, it's
well, even your staff, because now you're going to have someone that is you need someone that's a marketing genius on your staff for an LI. You need someone that is going to almost be a babysitter, and this being the mental advantage podcast, you start talking about what you need staff-wise to mentally sit young men and women down and say, hey, look, that was one of the big things that we've talked about and that we heard is, hey, you're not the athlete. You're Brandon, you're Phil, you're John. Like, there's more to you than this, except everybody else is telling you not really, because that bag is showing up because of the athlete that you are.
Yeah.
It's going to make leaving the sport and transitioning into the real world awfully difficult.
Yeah, that I don't envy that mental coach.
That's right.
No. Yeah.
Because he's going to have the hardest job on the staff.
That's right.
If these college coaches understand they need that person.
Right.
That's right.
Because the team psychologist is not the person.
Right.
They're going to need someone in specifically this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is going to bring a lot of mental stress.
Yeah.
And you don't think the kids are stressing about basketball? They're not. There's no football or baseball. They're stressing about their product.
Absolutely.
Their bag.
And they're the product. Yeah, they're the product and they're the brand. And, Phil, that's a nice segue into this next part of the discussion, because as a high school coach, I know you're a staff of, you usually have a couple people helping out, but I mean, at the end of the day, you've had years where it was it, right? You had to be that coach and that mental coach and everything in between.
Yeah.
And we have had a lot of sports psychologists on the show, and they talk about the difference between female athletes and male athletes. Male athletes have their own set of challenges because they've been brought up to be taught to just suck it up, just bury those emotions. We don't have time for that or whatever. Female athletes, one of the challenges they all talk about is they're pleasers by nature. They don't want to disappoint. They were raised that they didn't want to disappoint their dads. Now they don't want to disappoint their coach. Yeah. And that brings on a certain set of challenges for you as a girls basketball coach, because you've got these girls that are pleasers by nature, but then they're also very emotional when it comes to dealing with adversity and dealing with, confidence issues and things like that. I mean, how has that been, as a coach trying to do all that while you're also trying to do the X's and O's piece of it?
Well, first you have to show since I coach the females, you have to show these young ladies that you are truly in their corner. Mm-hmm. You care about them more than just the sport.
Yeah.
And because a lot of these young ladies, you become a father figure for them. And I'm gonna lead into this because I did become a father of a daughter through basketball. We adopted a kid from Africa.
Wow,
basketball.
Awesome!
And I learned a lot when I built a relationship with her. You had to start understanding that whatever you said, they hold on to.
Yeah.
So you really have to watch how you relay the information. Even when you're pissed and know that you want more out of them, you have to challenge them in a way where they take it as a challenge or not as you smacking them down.
Right.
It's always uplifting. And you have to tell them, you may not hear it the way it's coming out of my mouth, but you got to understand it's about the positive criticism. Don't take it as being negative.
Yeah.
And you have to do that with young ladies, because if you don't, they will take it as he's pissed at me. I'm not doing what I need to do, and I'm going to shut it down.
Yeah.
I can't do anything to please him.
That's exactly right.
And then if you, and I have to replay some of the conversations, and then I was like, that's not what I meant.
Right,
I said it just like this, but you interpreted it like that.
Yeah.
But but you were mad. No, it doesn't matter if I was mad. Yeah. This is still how it was meant. So you have to really get into that with the females. But then I've had some females that just like, you got to yell at me.
Yeah.
You got to curse me out to make me proud.
Yeah.
That was my daughter.
And it's like, and that was my, and I had a kid and John daughter played with her.
Yeah.
She was like, if I didn't yell at her, and everybody knew she was getting it, because I don't usually curse or get in their face. But when I used to grab my clipboard and do this, and I have her in front of me, everybody knew she was getting the business. And then you would just see a different kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before I started doing, her parents told me that's what I had to do.
That's it.
For her.
Yeah.
And those are the parents that are on board and understand that as you're building character, these are life lessons. Yeah. And and I try to use this all the time. And I told John years ago, the adversity with basketball is all life lesson. It can help you with relationships. It can help you in your personal life. It can help you with everything. I mean, just teamwork and being held accountable and dealing with different adversity. Being down by 6 with 45 seconds on the clock and they got the ball builds a lot of character.
Sure
it does.
Especially when you know that you can grind it. Yeah. So that pressure and understand that you got to take away the passing lanes and you got to make sure that person is weak with their left. You make them keep it in their left and get the understanding, the nuances of what you're doing. That's all life.
Right.
You walk into your work field and you see that you want that promotion and you see John sitting there and John is grinding, but John leaves at 5.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yep.
I'm going to stay to 6.
Mm-hmm.
John comes in at 9. I'm coming in at 8.
Yep.
And then you're preparing a little differently. You coming in, you're sharp. John coming in with his polo, you coming in with your tie. Yeah. You show them that you really want that job. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say, when you're playing that sport, you show them you really want that scholarship. Stand out for something.
Right.
Everybody got shooters. You're going to have kids who are tall. You're going to have kids who are short. You're going to have this, you're going to have that. But not many people out there diving in the stands, guarding 5 people, running up the court, talking, making sure their teammates are better. Those are the kids that college coaches walk away remembering.
Yeah.
Make an imprint.
I love that.
And that's what you have to do.
I love that, stand out for something. It's so true. And man, if you can just take that approach through every aspect of your life, like you're saying, the sky is the limit. And, Phil, one of the things I think about basketball is I always think about the whole, they say, Michael Jordan made a lot of last second shots. Well, Michael Jordan shot a lot of last second shots. Like he had that confidence to do that. And more than that, Brandon and I interviewed a guest last night who works with the PGA Tour, works with a lot of professional golfers. He's a sports psychologist on a tour. He's been on our show. This was his fourth appearance. Dr. Mo is his name, and Morris Pickens. And he said something I want to talk to you a little bit about, because you're making me think about this now, is the difference between confidence and commitment, and how important it is that it doesn't matter. Like everyone says, oh, I want them to be a more confident player or whatever. He said, you know what, that's great, but I want them to be a more committed player, because the commitment into the shot, to taking that last second shot, the commitment to do that, that's exactly right. It brings it. I can't wait for confidence all the time. Like if you're going to be, if we're drawing up a play with 3 seconds to go and you're the one that's getting the ball and you're not confident right now, I don't know what to tell you, but I want you to be committed to taking the shot, right?
That's funny that you just brought that up. I just got back from Charlotte. We had a tournament down there, and I had a kid who was like wide open on the right side of the basket. I've seen her make that shot 1,000 times. She wouldn't shoot. She wouldn't shoot. So I told
her name's not Ben Simmons, is it?
No. I could fix Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
I really could. You just got to have one conversation with him.
Yeah.
And he just got to buy in.
Yeah.
Right now, he just hasn't bought into those conversations.
That's it.
Right. It's a commitment. So I told the young lady, I was like, why didn't you shoot it? I don't have the confidence to shoot that shot. I said, so if you don't have the confidence to shoot that shot, should I have confidence of having you on the floor?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I was like, because I need confident players on the floor to perform, to help your teammates win.
Yeah.
So I said, when you get to working out, and I know you're a workout warrior, you are committed to working out. I said, you need to be that committed to shooting that shot right there every day. She was like, so you're asking me to shoot that shot? I was like, I want you to shoot that shot that you turn down every day. Be committed to doing that.
Yeah.
She was like, but why would I just shoot one shot? I said, because it'll give you the confidence to shoot it the next time in the game.
And that confidence leads to other shots, right?
Other shots. And she was like, oh, I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
I said, you guys make this thing harder than it
That's exactly right, don't they? I mean, that's the thing. Well, Phil, we're coming up on time, and I definitely do not want this hour to go by without me talking about Big Aaron, because man, we're so proud of everything that he's done. And it makes me think, though, as a father, and that was one of the things that I texted you on Super Bowl night, was like, man, just enjoy this moment, in which I know you were. But how did you navigate that? Because here you are a coach, and I know you were smart enough early on to say, look, I'm just not going to coach them. I'll go on the girls' side because it's going to make things a lot different for them in the future. But how did you navigate that? Like we were just talking about having to wear the different hats as a high school coach, being the mental coach and stuff. As a dad, it's the same thing. You're on the other end of those calls when he makes that transition to the NFL. Actually, even going back to JMU, I mean, he started out as a defensive player. Yeah. And then ends up getting to play offense. But there's lots of adversity in college and in the pros. How has that been for you as a dad going through that?
It's funny because me as an athlete, I had a different plight. My son as an athlete had a different plight. My older son, Brian, he was all this in football. He played great in football. He went to William & Mary, was doing well. He had some injuries, and then he knew what his plan B was. He was like, my job, I could say I want to try the NFL, but I want to be able to run around with my kids. And he had that set after his junior year. I was proud of him. Aaron went to JMU, and that was his dream school. He loved that school. And he was going to go there whether he had football or not. Right. And he went there, and it wasn't even a partial scholarship, believe me. It was I don't even think he could pay for his lunch. So but he understood. And I told him, I said, I said, are you confident enough that you can earn a scholarship? He said, I'm going to have me a scholarship by my second year. I said, okay, let's do this. So he had a very, very, he had a relationship with the coach his freshman year that he really enjoyed him, and he was getting better. This was his redshirt year. He was getting better. He was getting bigger. He was getting stronger, and he saw his plight, and he was like, yeah, it's coming. And then it was a coaching change.
Yeah.
And he had a coach that was, a little different, and he challenged him in different ways. Some of the ways I didn't agree with, but I wasn't that parent. Many times I wanted to put him in a headlock. I didn't. But I told Aaron, I said, your job is to shut him up every day. Every day. He doesn't have to remind you that you'll walk on.
Right.
When he get ready to yell at you, it's like, yep, the walk on messed up, or the walk on going to do. Just take back your power. And so it started working. Then all of a sudden, the second year, they brought in some guys and this, that, and the other. And offensive line coach, this guy, I can't say enough about this guy. His name was Coach Davis, and he left that same year. But then we were blessed enough, and Coach Powell is rest in peace.
God rest his soul.
Coach Powell came in, man, and my son had already made a decision to go over to the other line. And Coach Davis said, you just listen to me. I'll get you there. All I need you to do is lift and eat and put your weight on, and I'll take care of the rest. Coach Powell came in, followed suit. Make a long story short, he didn't just become a lineman. He became the starting left tackle for a nationally ranked team.
Yep.
And every day I reminded him not about his success on the offensive line. I reminded him about the adversity he faced on the defensive line. And I said, you're prepared to face any adversity that you deal with on that other line because that guy made you tougher.
Yeah.
I said, that's the way we got to look at it. He could be the SOB, he could be this, that, and the other, but he made you be able to deal with whatever was going to come your way.
Yeah.
Went on to Tennessee. And, yes, it was a letdown that he didn't get drafted and this and another. Everybody was in between. He was high on this, but when he measured, he wasn't as tall as they thought he was going to be and this and another. So then his stock started dropping. And so we're like, just another thing of that, another adversity you have to deal with.
Yep.
If you get your shot, what you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And he looked at it. He said, wherever I go, I'm making the team. I said, that's what you do. I said, what are you going to do? I'm going to outwork everyone. I'm going to stand out. I said, that's what you're supposed to do. You're going to be the toughest dude on the floor, on the field.
Yeah.
No matter who you deal with. And that's his mindset because he didn't have an easy road.
Right.
And that's what built it for this. And he prepares every day like he is starting the next day. And that's why he had the success he had in the playoffs.
That's exactly right. He was ready.
He prepared every day like he was starting that next game.
Yeah. And you know what? To take that full circle, Phil, because this is why we all got so passionate early in this conversation when we were talking about this idea that as soon as players reach that point of dealing with adversity, their parents lift them out of it, pull them out and pull them away. That's why as coaches, it frustrates us because we know what it's going to do for that individual if they just stay and deal with it and they just stay and push through it or whatever. Because I can tell you right now, knowing Aaron Stinnie, if he was being a accountant right now, if he was being a teacher, he would have the same attitude about it as he does as being an offensive lineman in the NFL. Because he had that opportunity to go through those things and truly looked at it as an opportunity,
I know you noticed this when we're in college because you said something to me way back. When he was in college, before every game, he would look at me in the stands and I would do this. and that's me eat.
Yep.
And everybody was like, why do you do that? Are you telling him to eat the other dude up? I'm like, no, earn your dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it was, because he had to earn that scholarship.
Yep. It's so funny. Every single time I would text with Mac during his time at JMU, and he could show you these texts to this day. The last 2 words in every single text I sent him was prove it. Yeah. Every single time. Prove it. Prove it. That you get an opportunity every day to go prove it.
Both our boys are blessed to be in a program that actually pushed them to prove it every single day.
Yes. No question. Yeah. We had Brian Shore on the show.
I watched his plight as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's another, but Phil, we talked to him about the idea that, with Withers, he recruited a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys came in and they fell short in the playoffs or whatever. And Coach Houston came in and basically with the same roster. What a difference it is when you create that culture, when you create that mindset, and you get people. Him and Marcus came in. He brought Marcus in as a character coach. Yeah. Like all of these things aren't by accident, right? It's because they did what needed to be done.
Coach Withers built the machine. Coach Houston made it a family.
Yes. Yep.
Now Withers knew talent, and he put it in. And for some reason, it just didn't mesh the way he wanted it to. And it was because I'm not going to blame that on Withers. He didn't have his right people in the right seats to help that out.
Yep.
Houston put the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
And that's why that team went on, and they should have won 2 in a row, but
no question about it.
So,
no question about it. They walk in to Fargo, and we're like, hey, where's the what they say? You don't go into the lion's den tiptoeing in there. You go knock the door down and say, where's the lion at? Like, let's go.
Yeah. The lion went running. It was too cold for him to come out the cage. So.
Well, man, we can't thank you enough for joining us. This was everything I thought it was going to be. And look, I hope that one of these days we'll have you back on and talk about more stuff, because like I said, the list of topics we could have dove into with you was limitless. But I'm so thankful to have you as a friend. Really, really thankful, for everything you did for my kids, both of them, Mac and Bailey, as far as just you being a good mentor to Mac, and then also to Bailey as a coach and mentor. You're creating a lot of really cool things. And I think the one thing that really is interesting to me, and we kind of started out about this when the Twitter profile is, you didn't have coach in there, but it's because you really have that role as parent, father for a lot of these girls that play for you. And quite frankly, knowing your role that you play at St. Anne's, I'd say it's not just the girls. It's a lot of those men and, all the young men and young women that you interact with in your role. So kudos, keep up the great work. You're doing a lot of really good stuff.
I've been blessed. Everybody said if you fall into a job you love, you never work a day in your life. And I was fortunate enough that when my playing career stopped, I got introduced to this man, Mr. Dr. George Conway, who was the head of the St. Anne's at that time, and we just clicked, and he found a niche for me, and I've been doing it for 19 years.
Yeah. And you've seen some great ones walk those halls. Chris Long. I mean, you've seen, Long, Kyle Long, all those guys.
Gavin Delorier, Aaron Stinnie walked the halls.
That's it.
Halls. I mean, we've had some great kids. Well, that's along with all the great lacrosse players and girls lacrosse players. We've had baseball players. We've had some great kids come through those halls, and the school is a better place for it. And most of these kids come back, and I hear from them a lot. So
that's awesome. Well, that means you've had an impact on them. So I appreciate you, man, so much. Thanks for joining us tonight.
All right. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Want to provide feedback or stay up to date with the show? Visit our Instagram page at Mental Advantage Podcast, or you can send us an email at podcast@mentaladvantage.net. To have John Cullen work with you or your team, please write to him at john.cullen@mentaladvantage.net. Thanks for listening to today's episode.